lion out, bring the lion out, bring the lion out, bring the lion out. Hello Aquarius, welcome to your horoscope for the full moon in Leo. This is happening on Monday the 6th of February at 5:30 a.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So it's going to be a moon setting full moon. So obviously the night before on the 5th of February will be a great time to hold ritual with the moon. If you're wanting to really feel the impact, you can get up early on the 6th and watch the moon set and let go of everything that we're about to talk about. So Aquarius, Leo is your 7th house. The 7th house is where we come into relationship with other. So think the first house, the house of the self, the soul. The 7th house, the house of the other. So there's that figure eight between the two. You can recognize that the Leo principles or the Leo sentiment is really important to you in terms of finding that in other folks. I imagine that you have some sense of attraction and a sense of belonging with people that are confident and self-assured and have the ability to express themselves. I think sometimes Aquarius, that's something that may be a little bit elusive for you, only because your mind's so preoccupied with the group, you know, with the sense of the bigger picture, problem solving from a greater vantage point. But Leo in your 7th is there to remind you that your individual point of expression, your individual lion, is essential too. And that we long to hear you express yourself. We long to hear how you've been feeling and how you perceive the world. What's your perspective from your perspective in particular? So a full moon in the 7th house is a chance to release some of the shortcomings or disappointments, or indeed maybe celebrate the achievements in your 7th house. How do you relate to people now that's different to the way that you used to relate to people in times gone by? In the way of having that Saturnian energy of boundary in your first house for so long, how has that been of benefit to you? How have those boundaries that you've been able to instill in your person been put to good use in the way that other folks relate to you and what other folks expect of you? Now, there is some squares happening at this lunation, so it is a tense one. I'll put it that way. It's going to be an intense one anyway, because it is a full moon in Leo, so that is a big, bright mane of an emotional wellspring. You know, there's a vibrancy to this moon. There's a real kind of roar to this moon. I'm just thinking of Michelle Pfeiffer now. If you know, you know. Anyway, but what I'm going to say is that there is a real sharp T-square, you know, a 90-degree square again with Uranus. So let's go back to the very beginning of the year and that feeling that potentially you had of being like, I think I can, oh, you know what, I can't be bothered. No, I'll do it in a minute. Yeah, nah, forget it. You know, that's how I'm maybe not, maybe you were really gung-ho. That's how I kind of felt. I was sort of like, and I just fell into a bowl of porridge for a while. I got sick, I got problems with this, that, the other. I was forced to really just sort of rest the body and contemplate, to go over what it is that I was, attempting to action. And so that I can put down to as Mars, Mercury, Uranus, all in their retrograde stations, so all moving backwards from our perspective. Now, at this lunation, so come the 6th, actually even probably right now as I'm recording these a week before, but we have no planets retrograde. Every one of them is marching forward. We know that we talked about it last fortnight with Mars, but Uranus as well. I think on the 23rd, yes, the 23rd of January was the date that Uranus stationed direct. So think about that kind of like, you know, a thing of that size moving forwards. It takes a while to get the momentum going, but it's that shift, sort of like, right, okay, everyone, back to all of this stuff in Taurus that we've been grappling with for 12 months or longer. So we know Taurus for you, Aquarius, is your 4th house. That's your home, roots, stability, privacy, that space. So this lunation, this tryst between self and the other, you know, the light in the self shining on the other, the opportunity to emotionally express is in a traffic jam with Uranus in your 4th house, with this growing sense that's in you of changing. It's sort of like, okay, when I think about home, what's got to give? How is this going to change? How is this going to evolve? I think evolution's a good word to think about when you think of Uranus. So I wonder, you know, this has been a long process as well. This isn't just coming out of the blue, but I kind of look at it as a sort of sleepy time at the start of the year of being like, I could do this, or I could just have a sandwich. Eddie Izzard, sorry, I'm quoting. There's that, but now it's kind of like, no, back to life, back to reality. You know that song? So, what can you name the pressure? Can you name the pressure that exists between your relationships, or the ones that you wish to have, and your home base, your private realm? Is there something that can't work there the way that you'd like it to, or is there something that you've managed to be able to clear and to work through because of the supportive boundary of Saturn in your 1st house? Because it's going to potentially at this moon, I mean, let's think about it, you know, the full moon in your 7th house, there might be relationships that, you know, you're sort of having a little goodbye ceremony with again, you know. It's sort of like, oh, this is the dynamic, or this dynamic doesn't exist anymore. And as much as I am happy for that to not exist anymore, there is still a little bit of sadness. I'm going to take this opportunity at this moon to you know, grieve and say goodbye again. You know, we've got to remember that, you know, cyclical time, you know, it's the progress. You don't sort of, we've said it before, you don't, you know, grieve and deal with that. Don't do the work and that's over and never look at it again. It comes around, it comes with the seasons. That's kind of what the moon is here to really remind us, you know. And this isn't to say, you know, sort of go into a doom cycle and you can't get over it and anything like that. It's not like that, but it's sort of like, oh, I'm having these feelings, rather than suppress them. You know what? I might take the opportunity to feel them. I might allow myself that. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, think pressure, want maybe to revolutionize the home, address or otherwise, you know, but the feeling of your home, perhaps there's something to do with your ancestral lines. There's, you know, that's, there's, because we've had eclipses here too in the 10th and the 4th, so there's been such an emphasis on Taurus, and there's going to be more later this year to wrap it up. But this moon, it's got to focus on Taurus again. So, are you happy at home? Are you happy living where you're living? Is where you're living getting in the way of your relationships? You know, I'm getting this sense of sort of like, you know, like long distance or something, or an inability to have ready access to the relationships that you yearn for because of the roots that have been, you know, established, the roots that have been established where you are now. There's another square between Venus and Mars this time, so a bit of femme and butch action. I've got that, you know, have you seen that movie, The Warriors, you know, the Lizzies? Do you know them? You may not. The awesome movie. It was made in the 70s about gang warfare in New York, except that it's incredibly camp and like a ballet. And there's one group called the Lizzies, and they're femmes with their switchblades. Very cute. That was patronising. Amazing. I really love the Lizzies. Anyway, all of this stuff I'm saying is because this femme versus butch vibe with Venus and Mars is playing out, let's see, in your 5th and your 2nd house. So let's think of it this way. Venus has just entered Pisces in your 2nd house, which is how you accrue, material worth, and it's your value system. So there's a sweetness perhaps to some of the ways in which you're generating, you're generating income, or you're sort of standing by your principles, I might say as well. Venus is really happy in Pisces. They're a beautiful glittery mermaid. There's something really kind of supportive about the femme aspects in Pisces. Pisces really leans to the femme, Mars, the butch, in Gemini, is still kicking up a stink in your 5th house, which is where you express yourself. So let's look at it this way. It's kind of like, yeah, Mars, yeah, I get it. We've been dealing with you for nearly 7 months. We get it. If you've been finding that inability to express yourself, then Mars having station direct will be the invitation to get it done. There's passion, wrapped in Mars too. It's not all toxic masculinity. There's also a great deal of passion. This square could be considered a tango, but how does, it's sort of like, I wonder, Aquarius, it's sort of like, it feels like, because it's kind of cutting across your 4th house too. Let me go out on a limb. I'm going to get some of these first as well. But are you wanting to do something else with your time? Is there something that you're kind of feeling like tied to, and that has, in your money world, that maybe Venus is sort of like, but what about this? I think that there's some nice creative energy that I can feel at this one, in this face-off, Venus is really creative. Venus is about art and about pleasure, about sensuality. And the 5th should be about those things. Should be. Maybe it's a little bit sort of fraught at the moment because of Mars. But okay, I'm going to go out on a limb, Aquarius, because I have the 9 of Cups here, which is autonomy. It's sort of, it's a feeling of being like satiated in your independence. It's a feeling of being like emotionally content. And it's sort of solitary, isn't it? Because this individual here in the white dress is just sort of like, I'm good. I don't need much more of anything else. But then I got the 8 of Swords, and that sort of is like a big contradiction. It's sort of like, but I'm a bit like, the anxiety is sort of closing in a little bit. It's sort of like, I'm so good by myself, and yet I'm so good by myself. I've needed this time to heal. All of this stuff in my home and in my relationships there's been some big stuff to get over, and I'm doing that, and yet I'm a bit lonely. The 6 of Pentacles is like, you can talk about this. You can talk about this feeling with, like pay it forward is the energy of this card, and then the Ace of Swords is the truth. So maybe there's, let's be concise about this, Aquarius. You've been toing and froing about how to express yourself because you don't want to come on too strong, you don't want to come on too aggressive, but it's also, like Venus is sort of like, but what? Like, spit it out. So, at this full moon, I think that there's, I always seem to say this to you, Aquarius, and that's all right. I'm happy to help. It's like you're invited to this party too. You've got such a brilliant ability to make sure that everybody else's concerns are, met. and you know, there's room enough for, okay, that person behaves in this way, that person behaves in that way. Look, this is the dynamic. I've got it all sussed out. This is the needs that are being presented here and there and everywhere. This spread, these cards have just told me that you need to tell someone, you need to talk to somebody about this stuff. I hope that at this full moon in your 7th house, there's someone around. You know, it could be one person. You don't have to get the megaphone out and shout it to the rafters. You don't have to, you know, update your socials, nothing like that. It's really just about sort of, by speaking your feelings, you honour them, and you remind yourself that you're entitled to your emotions and your feelings. A full moon in Leo, you know, it may be difficult for you to I don't know your story, Aquarius. It could be, you know, it could be a celebration. You could be in this space of fresh relationship where you're like, finally I'm being seen. But I think, yeah, as much as this moon's about the other, these cards have just told me a very different story. And I feel this Venus, you know, your values and the way you're expressing yourself, it feels like the turning of the page. You're potentially wanting to dig up those roots and sort of start fresh somewhere else, maybe. If that's the case, I hope that it isn't reactionary. I hope you're not sort of like, I've got to get out of here. Because, yeah, just from my experience, it doesn't last forever. You can't get away with that forever. Just being like, I've got to go. Yeah, that's a story for another time. But yeah, if the revolution is your neighborhood, your address, your home, I hope that if there's a shift to be made, then it's a shift into, you know, clear water and great potential, and it's not running away from something or from a dynamic that's presented itself that's really awkward or uncomfortable or you know, I wish for you to feel welcome. I always say that. I do though. I wish for you to feel included at this full moon, honey. And I hope that if you need to let it off your chest, that you can, that you've got access to someone that you can talk to. Yeah. Okay, Aquarius, I'm going to call it there. Head to umaruby.com, get your birth chart read by me if you haven't already. Book via the readings page. Also, tip money is always welcome at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. I think that's it. Yeah, I'll speak to you in 2 weeks for the new moon in Pisces. So yeah, that's it, Aquarius. Go gently. Say that a lot too, but I think it's really important. There's a lot of movement now, you know, it's sort of like I get that feeling of like, come on, get over it, get it done. And that, I mean, I'm a bit lazy, so I just like to take my own pace, and everything takes a million years for me to achieve anything. But yeah, don't feel pressure. Feel included. Be kind to your heart. Remember, Leo does rule the heart chakra. So at this full moon, be extra specially sweet to your heart space, your love space. And talk it out. That's it. I've got to go. Sands on. Bye.